So I'm shifting it over to the left and just kind of continuing to play around with this call to action. And so there's another thing I could do to help kind of soften this a little bit more, is I can go up to shape and add, instead of rounding all the corners, just round one of them. So I'm going to round this lower right hand side, which will be right here in this area. I'm going to make that a nice round pill shape. I'm just increasing it. I need to do a little bit more. Maybe double it. So it just kind of softens that sharp edge a little bit. And it also gives us the ability to tuck it up here to make it more like a tab. And let me bring this down ever so slightly. So that's going to be more of a tabbed kind of look. And it won't really interfere with the ad. It lets this breathe and it lets this be clean. And we could do the same thing, just kind of move this down here. So that could work well. And let me try some other colors. I really like this blue because it matches with her watch. But let me try that orange color again. See, that's too much. They're touching each other, so that's not going to work. Let me try one more color, maybe a really bright yellow. I think the blue is probably closer to what we want to do. So I'm going to adjust this just a tiny bit, and I think we'll be ready. Our basic standard ad will be ready, and we'll be able to take this and adapt it to many different sizes using some of these elements, all of these elements, and maybe a couple of new elements. It took about 5 minutes and made a few adjustments. I decided to make it a lot smaller and more understated. I also decided to switch it to the other font because I just couldn't get the sans serif to work, so I now have the serif font. And for the edge, I decided to add a little angle to the edge as opposed to having the rounded tabbed look. So just a few adjustments that I've made, and that's just noodling around with it. And another adjustment is, since we're playing off this little bit of a turquoise in her bracelet and bringing that out in the call to action, I thought, wouldn't it be neat to incorporate more color and doing every other line that same blue color. And also, instead of making the logo that blue color, because that would go against their branding standards, as they always have their logo either in white or dark gray for their branding standards. So I didn't want to add color because a lot of clients don't like it when you add color to their logo if it's not as a part of their branding package. So I'm leaving that alone, but I can do this little bit of a blue in the line there. So I can get away with bringing out a tiny bit of blue in the logo and a little bit of blue here. So what do you guys think? Do you like the blue, or do you like it all gray? Or if we did not like the blue there, we can make this a lighter gray, just something to add contrast to every other line, so it's not all blending in. Because if it was all the same color, I would read it as a list, and it would be hard to differentiate between the two different items. But when you do an every other one and you add contrast to every other line, it does help the eye digest the information. So there it is with every other light gray. Or I'm going to go ahead and copy this and do every other line the blue, and then we can kind of compare. And I've done this almost exact thing I'm showing you right here for my real world client, and we've used it for a winter campaign one time where we used a really bright pink photo. A lady was wearing a very bright pink hat, and we did kind of every other line like this, and it really helped to bring the ad together with the color unity. So for now, let's stick with the blue, and if it doesn't work out on some formats as we start to break this down and to do different versions, then we can just go back to the gray if we think it's too much color. So we'll just play around and have both options. We can present both to the client. If they approve this basic ad, then I can start to create all the different versions based on what they like and what they approve. So I think we're ready to go. This is the basic version. Let's create a couple of different versions with some different combinations of elements. I want you to open up the sizing guide that should be included in the section part of the class. You'll be able to download it as an extra PDF. And I developed this exclusively for this class and for what I'm doing in this section. We're going to create almost all of these together. So we'll be able to create most of the paid ads and all the different post variations you'll have on both Facebook and Instagram. These are the two social media platforms we're going to focus on in this section. So we're just going to start with the top and work our way through. We're going to adapt the ad we just created to each one of these sizes, and you'll get to see kind of the process I go through and determining what elements get to end up on these sizes depending on its size. So we're going to start out with the first one, which is going to be your standard Facebook post, which is 1200 by 630 pixels right here. And what's great about this is this could be a regular standard post that you post on your business page or your client's page, but it can also be used for paid ads. So if you ever set up a paid ad on Facebook, this is usually the required pixel size. So let's go ahead and resize. This is our standard kind of a random size that we came up with. This is our base ad, I guess you could call it. So let's resize this. We're going to go back to our sizing guide, 1200 by 630. So I'm just going to go document setup, go 1230, or 630 by 1200. Let me double check that size. Yep, 1200 by 630. Great. And what I love about designing in Illustrator is I could do several different artboards. Let me go ahead and zoom out. So when we start to do all these other Facebook ads, I can have one document but have all my different social media sizes in there. A lot of designers design in Photoshop, and you can also use the artboard system there too, but I just love the way Illustrator is in the vector environment. So outside of photos, if I ever wanted to adapt any of my social media campaigns to a print campaign, everything's already vector, and it's going to be easy to size it up to a large poster size or a large banner. I already have it in vector format, as opposed to taking a digital ad in Photoshop and having to adapt that to be vector. It's much easier to take a vector and go back down to Photoshop and do a raster. So that's why I love Illustrator, is it's already in vector format. Everything I do, so easy to work with. Okay, so as we can see, there are some sizing differences between the base ad that we put together and the Facebook standard post. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just select all. We're going to go ahead and adapt it to have a similar. So this one looks like the dimensions. It's a little more wider than it is tall. So we're going to have some extra space on the right and left to work with. But it's not going to give us any extra room on the top and bottom. So we're still got the same amount, but now we need to stretch our image across a little bit or give ourselves a little more white space for this bar and let that breathe a little bit. And I can also increase the spacing between the lettering here now that I have a little extra breathing room. So I'm going to make that 300. Zooming in here a little bit for you. So I widen the spacing just a tad, not too much because we don't want the ads to differ too much. And this is cropped, so let me just get my direct selection tool. I'm just showing more of the cropped area, bringing this out. Or I can decide to release the clipping mask and create a new one based on what I think works well. And this is such a great photo because I have so much to work with cropping wise on the sides. We could even create a version where all this is white. I just had this idea, it just kind of came to me playing around. Ooh, that looks nice. You know, that would look really good as like a full page paid ad, like an Instagram story, where you have a little bit more of a wider space. That looks nice. What do you guys think? I wish I can get feedback from you to say, hey, I like the other version. Or no, I love this version. That looks just really high end. That looks great. So it's never too late to change your original idea. There is an issue with this version though, as I can see when I start to adapt it to the smaller digital sizes that this is not going to work quite as well. But you can have different variations. So this, you could probably get away from a branding perspective, having this version for your large, maybe your print ads. I think this would look really great for a print ad. But for digital, let's go ahead and stick with our white background, because I think that's just going to be more readable on smaller sizes. So you got to think practically when it comes to this kind of stuff. So let me go ahead and draw a box right about here. I'm going to go ahead and crop it. It's to whatever your client likes. That's what you go for. So if you think your client will like the other way, say, hey, I came up with a great idea. Do you like this version better? And they may say, yeah, let's do that one. Or you may say, hey, I'm having a hard time adapting that to other sizes. Let's go back to the other version. So you notice our white bar is much wider because we have some extra playing room, which is great because I think it breathes a little bit better than our original ad. Let's go ahead and click save. I think we can add a little bit more leading too. So let's increase the leading or the spacing between the sentences or the lines. Great. And I'm just going to do a quick test to see how this logo is balanced on this white bar. So I'm just doing a quick visibility test, and that looks about right. Okay, so we are done with the Facebook ad. So I'm going to go ahead and export this to JPEG, but let me first do a couple more sizes first on the same area. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out and create a new artboard.